Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hi, everyone. This is Gary Wilson, and welcome to this week's live Path to Prosperity podcast. We call it the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is for you and me. We're business owners, we're entrepreneurs, we're professionals, and the way we invest is good old-fashioned school, basically fundamentals. We're not real big on wholesaling and no money down. We do those things, but I will tell you, the longer you listen, the more you pay attention, the more you learn, you're going to get on a cash basis. Okay, that's where the real deals are made. You know, the best deals are made when you're offering cash. You can always pull your money out later. We do finance, we just refinance strategically. That's how we do. We have a different strategy, and we have greater long-term wealth and income as a result. So if you haven't already done so, please go and subscribe to the podcast. The original one was Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. You can find it on Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio. You can go ahead and subscribe there. We are rebranding when the new one, the new platform comes out. It's going to be automatic transfer. You don't have to do anything yourself. Also, if you have not been on the website, please go to realestatewithgarywilson.com. Click on the members area. If you're already a member, you know what to do. You click on the left. If you're not a member, you click on the right, and you get to check it out for free for 30 days. You get to you'll find the community site where all of our investor agents are out there with their own profiles from California to Maine and Montreal to Miami. So if you're serious about your investing, you've been wondering where to go, this is the place to go to find a certified investor agent. They're trained to work with you and I. We're all investors. I know them because I've trained them. They're certified. It's the only place they can get this certification. Okay. So in any case, without further ado, I want to introduce one of our students. By the way, one of our global investor agents, Shannon Goldsmith. She's coming to us from Scottsdale via LA. So how about that? So Shannon, instead of me spoiling the story, how about if you just start off and tell us a little bit about Shannon and let people get to know you a little bit? Sound like a good idea?
Sounds like a great idea. Well, first, Gary, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. A little bit about me. I am a former corporate slave turned real estate agent. I spent a long time in the corporate world working my butt off for other people, to the point where it almost felt like a 24/7 job. And I realized once I was in my mid-30s that I couldn't stick with that plan anymore. So fortunately, I was able to transition into real estate. And not too long into my foray into real estate, I realized that I was way more interested in the investing side of the business, not as much into the traditional owner-occupied side, but more the investing side. I've definitely got a nerdy side of me. I love numbers. I'm totally analytical, so I really got into that. And I just love that, investing brings out people who are decisive. You know, they're coming up with a plan for their future, their lives. They're trying to build, this incredible wealth. And that was just way more interesting to me than walking people into homes and talking about cabinetry and countertops and space and light and volume and all those wonderful things that we love about homes. But that's just not like what fed my soul. So really got into the investing side of things. Based in Los Angeles for the past 4 or 5 years or so. But actually on my way to Scottsdale, hopefully sooner rather than later, which is really where my heart is. I love the desert. Get me to the desert. I just want sun beating down on me every day, all day long. So that's my near plan for what I'm going to be doing for myself. So anyways, as my business has developed and working with real estate investors, I'm always looking for the best tools, the best strategies, things that I can help investors, build their portfolios better, faster, smarter. And that's why I'm super thankful, Gary, that I met you, because so many of these tools and strategies that I use have come from you. I mean, so much so I feel like I should be giving you all my commission. But I've been super thankful for that. And one of the things that you've taught me is, it's super important when you're investing. It's not just an offense play. It's offense and defense. You can't just be running around snatching up properties without looking behind you and trying to figure out, if your back door is hanging wide open. So as I've just progressed in this business, I've met a lot of interesting people along the way. And actually a friend of mine, funny enough, I should say he's more of an acquaintance, a gentleman by the name of Jeff Hatcher. And he I didn't realize this. I mean, I always knew the guy was fabulously wealthy, but I never pried. I never asked how he got his wealth. Well, just recently we ended up having a conversation, and he told me he's a big time investor. Wow, I can't believe I never even had that conversation with him before. But he's got a massive portfolio of Airbnb properties across the country. So we started to have, you know, some fun chats about that. And then he's like, well, hey, you know, I just came across this incredible financial tool that's really helping me in my investing business. And, you know, maybe you should take a look at it. And so he showed it to me, and I was completely blown away, and I haven't looked back since. So here we are.
Well, that one, now that I'm intrigued, I'm sure everybody else is too. So what is the tool? I know, you know, you mentioned to me before, and I've seen things like this before, but I don't think I've seen anything like this. I mean, I know you showed me like a graphic, and I thought, okay, that's something we want to introduce to everybody. So tell us a little bit of what that is, and, you know, when you first saw it, what were you thinking? Like, did you have like a big giant light bulb moment when it went off and you saw the applicability to all these investors? I mean, including me, by the way, too. So yeah.
Yes, 100%. When I saw it, I was like, holy cow, where has this thing been all my life? And wow, thank God that it is in my life now. And I just can't wait to share it with everybody. So what it is, it's a financial tool. It's actually in the form of like a computer software program that you access online. But what it does is it helps you pay down your debt in record time. It works for mortgages. It works for student loans, car loans, medical debt, tax debt. It also works for business loans. And we can take a mortgage, for example, and we can take it from 30 years and pay it off in as little as 5 to 7. And sometimes even faster. In fact, as I'm working with more and more people on this, they're paying it off in 3 years, 4 years. I mean, it's incredible. And in terms of the other kinds of debt, business debt, credit card debt, etc., we can cut that down to a quarter to a third of the time. And the crazy thing is, this is without changing your budget or your lifestyle. So when I like heard this, I was like, how is this? Well, first of all, is it legal? Second of all, how is this even possible? And why haven't I heard it? You know, why haven't I heard of it before? So anyway, I started to get into it. Again, my nerdy analytical side came out in me, and I wanted to vet this company. Like, who are they? What is this about? Is this thing legit? And not only did I find out that the company is legit, but they have this incredible track record of doing this for so long. Tens of thousands of people who've used this program to pay off their debts. So the reason initially why it was so interesting to me is because the program is robust enough to handle investors. So you can add on as many mortgages as you want, and it scales with you however big your portfolio is. So there's also another side of it too that allows you to make these projections. So let's say you have, 10 properties and you're looking at your 11th property. You've done your property analysis, you've done your neighborhood analysis, everything checks out, and you just want to see, you want to look into your future, and you want to see, how long am I going to be paying down this mortgage? What am I facing here? So you can plug those numbers into the system, and it will show you how long it's going to take. And what we find is that you're going to be, by seeing into your future, it gives investors so much more confidence in buying that next property. And especially newbie investors who haven't made that first purchase yet, when they can see that they can pay off this property in record time, less than 5 years, it's pretty motivating. So that's basically it. So what questions do you have for me?
Well, it sounds pretty awesome. And I know anybody that's been listening to me long enough knows I'm debt free right now. I have no personal debt, no business debt. The thing is, I wasn't able to do it in 5 years. I didn't have this kind of a strategy, and I'm hoping you'll be able to show us some stuff that's like we're all numbers people. I mean, you and I are a lot alike too. Obviously, we do that, so analytical. But for me, I started off literally within a month of graduating from college. I bought my first property. It was a combination. I lived there and I rented out the other rooms. We now call it house hacking. From that point on till 5 years ago, I was in debt. A lot of debt, up to my eyeballs. And I was growing a portfolio, building businesses. And so it was all part of this machine and this methodology, and it was working. But also know that there was also that big 800-pound gorilla on my back the entire time. It was always stressful. Like, my gosh, I mean, Shannon, I would wake up in a panic sometimes, having forgotten some of my properties. How about that for a nightmare? Like, you got so many properties, if you wake up thinking, I forgot about, is somebody living there? Are they paying their rent? You know, the debt. I mean, in the last recession, a lot of people got clobbered. You know, we certainly took a hit on that, but we were okay. We had at that point enough equity and cash flow. It really didn't, we didn't have to lose properties, anything like that at all. But a lot of people did, and it was very dramatic. And I learned a very powerful lesson, which was, because I had such a strong cash position, I was okay. And I made that commitment then. This is 10 years ago. That, well, maybe 10, 12 years. I thought, I want to be on a cash basis completely. I don't want to keep borrowing and all the kind. So I was able to do it. And if I was able to do this, Shannon, in 5 years versus 10 or 30 years, I absolutely would have done it. You know, when you mentioned we don't really have to change our lifestyle, to me, it sounds like a computer program that's taken all the variables. You've got credit cards, you got student loans, car loans, your own personal home loan, investor loans for properties, maybe business loans. And, you know, list goes on and on. So if it can take all those variables and run them through a computer program that generates, it tells you this is what you should do first, or maybe even does it for you. I don't know. But can you fill us in there? Like, is it actually a computer program? Does it do the work for us? Do we just put out the data? Like, kind of give me the little bit of the what and the how. Like, how does it actually work, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you asked that. So it's a computer program that runs on very complex algorithms. So the founders of the company, they invested about $19 million into this to create this program. And that's exactly right, Gary. It's taking into account your entire debt load, your entire financial picture. And it works like a moving GPS. It's like a financial GPS. So similar to plugging in your destination on your GPS on your phone or in your car to get from point A to point B, it's going to show you the fastest path to getting there, the most direct path, the fastest path. But same thing with as driving from, you know, point A to point B to get to our destination in life and in our financial lives. Things happen. We get unexpected plumbing bills, or, you know, we need to replace a roof on one of our properties, or something comes up that bumps us off the path for a minute, but the GPS system recognizes it, follows you, and then reroutes you back to your destination in the fastest possible path. And that's what this does. It works like a moving GPS, and it can't run without the algorithms. It's just a complex mechanism that's honestly way over my pay grade. I couldn't explain the math and the calculations and all that.
Yeah.
But what's great is I don't have to, and anybody who uses it doesn't have to. It puts it all on autopilot. It takes the guesswork and emotion out of paying down debt entirely. And, you know, Gary, when you were paying down your debt, I'm not sure if you were paying down extra principal or things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people try to do that to get this debt off their backs much sooner, which is great. And that does effectively cancel interest and reduce your timeline. However, most people are just guessing. And I'm going to show you in a little bit that guessing can be very expensive, because you could lose years and you could lose thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have one investor who we ran his scenario through our program, and he had 10 mortgages at the time. He had his primary residence and he had 9 properties, buy and hold properties. So when we ran his scenario through, we showed him, well, look, the program wants to start attacking your 9th mortgage first. And he said, nope, that's it. It doesn't work. It's wrong. You know, no way.
Right.
And we said, well, why is that? And he said, because my 3rd mortgage is the mortgage that has the highest interest. And that's how a lot of people think. They think it's the highest interest. They don't realize that where you are in the life of your loan makes way more of an impact. And there's also many other factors. So we said, okay, well, let's just see what that would look like. So we switched off those algorithms and we switched the program over to prioritizing this 3rd mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And what's amazing is we're able to track in real time and see the effect of these decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So he went from a 20-year payoff for all these properties to, and changing it to the 3rd mortgage. he added an additional year of debt, and he lost over $250,000 in interest savings. So just in that one decision, this guy would have lost this amount of time, this much time and cash flow, extra cash flow, and that amount of interest. So it's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the explanation. I know for me, what I did, Shannon, is I didn't actually have an algorithm. What I did is I would, as I accumulated additional cash flow, excess cash flow that I could accumulate, where I would normally use a down payment to buy another property, take on more debt, I would just pay off in chunks. So I'd take whatever property I'm thinking, okay, this property, I'm probably going to want to remodel at some point, or maybe I'll sell it, or maybe whatever. And for whatever reason, I thought I'll put a big chunk of money on that. So it wasn't like a mathematical algorithm based on facts and data, which is based on me, like it's almost guessing, saying, well, I'm gonna, I can pay this off in 3 chunks, therefore I'll put all my money on that. So it was almost like the maybe like the caveman method. I had my club and I was beating it down, And really, I'll tell you, here's a good analogy. Prior to the early 1900s, war battles were fought on the battlefield where one army would meet another army, they would run at each other. It was just, just disastrous type strategy. That's probably what I was doing. Whereas today, we have, an Air Force with smart bombs. It's very strategic and they pinpoint, it's accurate. And that's a big difference. And we save a lot of lives as a result. So the analogy is use this point accurate methodology and save a lot of money. So that helps a lot. Now let me ask you this: you mentioned you're in LA, you're in California, and but if somebody's listening to this, because we've got listeners, and I think over 30 different countries now, and a lot of them in North America, U.S. and Canada. But if somebody's listening to this from Canada or the Bahamas or something like that, or maybe even Ireland or Scotland, or even would this work with them too? Like, say they're investing in the States. I mean, have you heard of clients doing that from other countries too, or doing this using this method?
Yes, in fact, yes. And if you're not in the U.S., you can still use this program. It still works with those banking systems. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, as far as timing, I'm going to kind of date time stamp the podcast here. Clearly, we're headed for a correction, and we believe a pretty sizable one. Nobody has a crystal ball, of course, but all the factors, all the economic factors there, even without the coronavirus, this was going to happen. It's a mathematical certainty. We don't know exactly when. Just like the last recession, we were calling for it 5 years before it happened. But when it happened, it really happened big. So is timing a factor in this, or is this something we can apply anytime, or like now we're at the peak, we believe we're at the peak, 10 years ago we're at the bottom, I mean, what would you tell somebody like a dentist who's got a bunch of properties and are looking at this now versus 10 years ago when things were really bottoming out? I mean, is it the same fundamentals? Does the algorithm change, or how does timing affect this?
That's a really good question. And I think I think the biggest thing is risk. You're looking at risk, right? So we're sitting at the top of that mountain and we're starting to look down and things are starting to change. I mean, I'm seeing it in LA, there's stuff happening. I mean, there's still a lot of activity, but the signs are there.
Right.
And actually the signs have been coming for a while now. So being prepared is probably the most important thing. So in terms of timing, getting something like this in your hands is important, because this is all about your defense play. This is about reducing your risk. And what this program allows you to do is, yes, it's paying off debt, but you have to look at it like this. What you're doing is you're rapidly building equity, and if you're rapidly building equity in a declining market, your risks are going to be so much lower compared to the investor that's over leveraged, who's lost some tenants, who's scrambling, trying to find some money to keep these properties afloat. And just to add this in, the gentleman, Jeff Hatcher, that introduced me to this program, the big time investor I told you about, he is a shining example of this. He had a decent portfolio. He had 17 properties before the crash in 2007, 2008. And he had been trying to do what the latest gurus were telling him to do: throw some money at the principal, try to pay it down as best he could. And it's great that he was doing that. He still lost his properties, but he only had to, out of 17, he only had to short sale 2 of them, right?
Wow.
So sadly, he had to sell them all, but he only short sold 2. Now he said to me, he's like, Shannon, if I had my hands on this program before this happened, I know that my situation would have been totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are, on the precipice. And but even if we weren't, rapidly building your equity is a great way. I mean, you know it better than I do, Gary, about managing your risk. I mean, you have a certain ratio that you like to work with, don't you?
Right. I do. Over the years, for me, what it came down to is on the asset liability side, I didn't want to owe more than 2/3 of what I own. So if I owned 10 million in real estate, I didn't want to owe more than 6.6 million in debt. And on the income expense side of the balance sheet, or financial statement, excuse me, I wanted to make sure my debt service, principal and interest payments, were not more than 1/3 of my gross receipts coming in. And when I found out when I managed those ratios, I never had a problem borrowing money. It was just, that's what the banks, I was meeting the bank's requirements as far as risk goes. And banks are definitely risk averse. That was my background. I was in banking, of course, like you, I was in a corporate world, and I was in banking for all those years. And I learned a lot about money from the other side of money,
Yeah.
And, I know in real estate, it's expected to be highly leveraged when you're actively growing a portfolio. And I understand that. But what I would suggest to people is, do it like climbing stairs. When we climb stairs, we don't jump up both feet at the same time to the next step. We have our left foot on the step we're on. We lift the right foot up to the next step. And if for a brief moment, we're on both steps. And when we're secured, then we lift the left foot up to that step, and then we lift the right. So think of it this way. This is exactly what I did. When I really got serious about investing, I basically designed a system to do it. And what I did is I aggressively grew for a year, and quite a lot of debt, of course. But for the next year, I aggressively paid it down. And then I did this thing again repeatedly. That's how I grew. I did stair steps. What I didn't have was this formula to help me keep that, do it quickly. So, and by the way, you mentioned being prepared, Shannon. I just want to touch on that for a second. I mean, I'm an old Boy Scout. I'm still a Scout Master. I do high venture trips all over the world. And one of our mottos is to be prepared. And the fact is, we don't know. All we can do is give you facts and data and tell you what's going to happen. It's a certainty. It's mathematical certainty. But we can't tell you when. So the answer is to be prepared. And really smart investors do play offense and defense. You play offense, and you can't not do one of those two, or you're just increasing risk. So do you have an example, a case study, or anything you can show us? I mean, I know I'm probably asking a lot here, but are engineers, they're dentists, they're pilots, and they just like to see like a screenshot or a spreadsheet or a graph or a chart, anything like that. Shannon, do you have time? You want to do that? Or
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I can show you something even better. I can actually show you the program. And in fact, that investor with the 10 properties, I've got his numbers loaded in here. His name's hidden, so he remains anonymous. But I can show you his scenario and a couple things you can do with this program to help with your planning and forecasting and all that. So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Okay. And you probably need a second, I guess, bring something up.
Yep. Actually, let me go ahead and do that first.
Okay.
I'm going to get signed in.
Okay. And while you're doing that, just want to have everybody listening here. This is probably one of the most important podcasts we've had. And the reason is like I just mentioned, we know what's going to happen. We know it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And this is my 5th recession, and I can tell you, anybody that goes back to the Tax Reform Act of 1986, that was where I cut my teeth. I literally just graduated college, bought my first property, and the tax laws changed for self-employed people like doctors and dentists. It took away a lot of loopholes, and a lot of those properties they were sold because those doctors lost the loopholes, right? And it changed their strategy of investing. And that's where I started. Fast forward to now, I can't emphasize enough, as you grow, mature, and age, you'll start to shift from trading time for money, trading your time to earn money, to trading your money for time, your experiences with your life with your family and your friends. I mean, this is the kind of thing that makes that happen much more quickly than what I did, which is take 30 years. So Shannon, it looks like I see something up here now. This is looks like numbers. Yay, we get to see some numbers. So
We
go
like
ahead
numbers.
and kind of just describe what this is and walk us through it.
Sure. Well, this is actually the program itself. This is the brains of the program. So if you were to have this program yourself, Gary, this is what you'd be looking at when you'd be signing into it. So across the top, these are my favorite numbers because these are your truth tellers. They're your best friends. They're what's going to keep you on track. And they're what's going to make you smarter and more in control of your investments and your finances than anything else will, more than your financial planner ever could. So on the left, we've got your payoff date. And again, this is based on this gentleman's scenario here with his 10 properties. Right now, his payoff date is June 1st of 2040, so 20 years to pay off. But look at the amount of interest he's saving with this program. $1.4 million in change. That's pretty significant. And over here is the actual number. And what happens is as he is using this program, this number will start ratcheting up. So every time he makes a transfer or follows what the program tells him to do, it's going to keep track of every cent. And what's amazing about this is a worst case scenario here. The company likes to be conservative. They like to under promise and over deliver. So what we find is that most people generally end up paying things off 20% sooner. So if this investor is like most people, it won't even take him 20 years to pay off. Now this timeline, it's going to be different for everybody. It's different on your debt, based on your debt load, your financial snapshot, your discretionary income, all those things. We've seen some people who've paid off 15 properties in 10 years, so it doesn't necessarily mean that this would take you that long. But scrolling down, you can see it looks just like a check register, very simple, nothing crazy. You're just looking 3 months ahead. But even though it looks simple, don't underestimate the algorithms that are running in the background. They're extremely complex. But you can just see money coming in, money going out, his rental income for the month, about 15 grand, money moving from checking to savings. The blue numbers here are debt payments. The black numbers here, these are expenses, and these change all the time. So it only takes you about 10 minutes a month to manage this. You just go in here, select month, execute multiple actions. Hopefully it'll come up quickly.
It's the magic of the internet. Some days things move fast and some days they don't. There we go. Okay.
That's right. Okay, so as you can see, it just pulls up like a register here. So anytime anything changes, as they do, if let's say you had a really fun month and you went out for a few extra nice meals, you could come in here and you could change your food and dining bill, your utilities, things like that. You just true up everything at the end of the month, execute these actions, and then you're done. I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to leave it as is. But that's how simple it is to use. But really what we care about is how the heck is this even working? What is it doing to pay down the debt? Well, these algorithms are looking at your snapshot every single day, every penny that's coming in, every penny that's going out, and figuring out what it can do. So you come in here once or twice a month to see what it's suggesting. And see these red squiggles here? This is the program telling you, okay, it's time to start doing stuff. And we're going to be doing stuff on top of what you normally would do. So right now in June, it's saying move from your checking into your savings this amount of money, $885.03. Not that exciting.
Okay.
But you scroll down to here into July. You can see your rental income's coming in. It's moving money from checking to savings again. The reason why it does that is because even those savings accounts right now get a stupid small amount of interest, at least it's some interest, and it recognizes that even pennies add up. So that's why it's doing that. But here, this is the scenario I was telling you about, where the system is saying to this investor, okay, you need to be paying this much on top of your regular monthly payment on your 9th mortgage. And this is where the guy said, no way, this is flawed. I'm a savvy investor. I know what I'm doing. The system obviously doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is just show you how this can keep you on track and how it keeps you smarter than any other investor out there. So you can go into program focus settings, and I want you to keep your eyes on years to pay off and take a look at this number. Remember, we're around 1.427 million, right? I'm going to switch this to the 3rd mortgage and just wait and watch. There you go. So it moved up almost an entire year. It added an entire year, and then over $200,000 in interest lost, right?
Yep.
Maybe a little
Okay.
less. Sorry, I'm not doing math today. So anyway, so that's a really powerful tool at your fingertips. And there's
Okay.
other things that you can do. Let's say you wanted to buy a new property. So you've done your analysis, the neighborhood checks out, you know it's got a great rental market, right? All those things you teach us, Gary. And you've decided you're really close to buying this property. So let's just run through the scenario here. We're going to add a mortgage, and we're going to call it the 11th property. Let's say your starting balance is $280,000. Right now, let's say a 4.5% interest rate, and your payment amount of $1,418.72. We're not going to do escrow right now, so we're just going to add that in. And here you can see it added 3.7 years onto the years to pay off. So actually not that much to add an additional property. Yeah. And look over here. He has lost some interest savings, but guess what we haven't even done yet? We haven't even added in the rental income. So let's go ahead and do that. So we are going to add this rental income, and we're going to call it 11th property. And we're just going to say $1,800 per month. Now watch years to pay off and keep the interest saved number in mind. Oops. Oh yeah, I forgot, select a category. That's another great thing about this is you can get really detailed and itemized if you'd like to. If you like to, you know, keep track of your budget and that kind of thing, you can run all kinds of reports at the end of the year if you'd like. So there you go. So we've just added an additional property. Years to pay off has not changed even one single month. But look at this. You've saved even more interest now, another $100,000 approximately, $105,000 in interest just using this program.
Okay, it's amazing. So it's definitely taking like principal balance, loan term, interest rate, all those factors, and it probably does its own calculations and turn to like amortizations, and it can compare the different mortgages to determine where you put more weight on, more emphasis.
Absolutely.
And it does it programmatically, systematically. We don't have to do that work. And that's an amazing tool, you know.
It's an incredible tool. Yeah. I mean, there's so many other things that you could do, all different kinds of scenarios you can run. And then, you know, to your point of what you were talking about before, Gary, where, you know, taking your steps up the stairs, and one year you'd be aggressively buying and the next year you'd be aggressively paying down. You can do that with this program. You can tell it, you know, that this is the year I want to be paying down the most, and you can reprioritize it to that. If it's a year where you want to be buying or you're gearing up to buy, you can set a threshold dollar amount that you need to save, that you want to save by a certain point in time. Okay. And what the system will do is it will attack your debt, but make sure that savings is getting accounted for, and make sure that it's sitting there waiting for you when you're ready. So it can do both at the same time. Obviously, you know, the more you throw out your debt, the faster you pay it off. But if you're trying to balance it out, it can help you do that too. Yeah. Hey, by the way, I want to mention something to all the listeners. If you're listening to this in podcast format, obviously Shannon and I are looking at a screen. If you want to see the audio visual version, just go to it's YouTube. It's Real Estate with Gary Wilson YouTube channel. You know, see it in there under podcast. You can also go to our Facebook page, go to the website. We have all these there in both audio and video formats. So don't worry if you feel like you're missing something. You're really not. You're probably getting the gist of it just by listening. In fact, is there a way, like I've got a feeling with all the people that are listening to this, Shannon, I mean, some of them I know personally, and a lot of them we're very close. Like a lot of us are professionals and business owners. So they probably want to see more. What can somebody do if they want to apply this to their own business? Sure. Yeah. Well, the first thing to do is just get in touch with me, and we can just have a quick chat over the phone. We can talk about what they're trying to do. I can let them know very easily if this is something that might make sense for them. And then it's just jumping on a Zoom call with me, and we can just run their scenario for them. And then they can see, they'll know when we're done with it, the exact date that they can be debt free, and to the exact amount of interest they'll save to the penny. And what's cool is the results are guaranteed. So.
Awesome. Well, what else? Anything else you can tell us? I mean, I know we're some people are probably sitting on the edge of their chairs, and other people are probably pulling in their driveways, and so we just have a whole gamut of listeners all over the world. But anything else you can share with us that you think is important or relevant? I mean, a website, or is it best for them just to? How do they, like when you say call you? Is there a link you can share? We can put all this in the show notes too, obviously, but while we're here recording, anybody listening, they can jot these notes down, or just keep them in their phone or their computer while they're listening,
Sure. Well, the best thing to do is just set a time to speak with me, and you can do that very easily. You can just go to my calendar that's online, and you can find it at calendly.com/Shannon Goldsmith. So CALENDLY.com/SHANNONGOLDSMITH.
Okay. Awesome. And I tell you what, everybody, take Shannon up on that. I mean, to talk to her doesn't cost a thing. And I think if you can have do a quick analysis on what you've got. I know some of you have got multiple practices. I know some of you are actually in the Phoenix area, right where Shannon is. I mean, my gosh, I probably shouldn't mention any names, but there's one really big time dentist in there right now. And I've actually been on his podcast. In fact, he's been on mine. And then up in near Sedona, and I know he's got 7 commercial buildings.
Wow.
And I know what it's like when you're running a business, especially a practice like that. My gosh, the numbers, the sheer amount of money flowing in and out. I mean, you've got to really have your ducks in a row. And this looks like, I mean, what you just showed me, I mean, I was blown away. So so it's Calendly. Go ahead and say that again.
Yes, it's calendly.com/Shannon Goldsmith, spelled just like it sounds.
That's easy. Okay. Well, we'll put that in the show notes. And boy, Shannon, I got to tell you, I really appreciate you taking your time to do this. I've known you for a couple of years now, and I know you're extremely busy. I mean, successful people are busy. And I'm glad that you spoke up and brought this to my attention. And I know when you came across it, I can imagine what you were thinking when you were seeing it for yourself, because I know you got some pretty big plans for yourself too. Anybody listening, if you've got 1 property or 10, I mean, you'd be crazy not to pursue this. Go to calendly.com/Shannon Goldsmith /Shannon Goldsmith, set up that call. You'll do it over Zoom, get to look at your numbers, and get a real clear shot of what's possible for you and your finances. So in any case, thanks again, Shannon. I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that. And thanks everybody for listening. And also remember, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. It's easy. And go to the Gary Wilson, Real Estate with Gary Wilson website. Go to the members area and check it out for free. And by the way, on the community site, you will see Shannon on there too. She's one of our global investor agents. I mean, if you're looking to invest, my gosh, you couldn't have a better client to support you. And the Phoenix area is one of the best areas for a long, long time. So how's that for a cherry on top? So, all right, Shannon, well, listen, thank you very, very much. Everybody listening, thank you very much. We'll see you on the next podcast. In the meantime, take care and God bless.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.